As the sun cast its first golden rays over the military base, a young soldier named Jake sauntered across the grounds, a smug grin plastered on his face. He and his friends, Mark and Dave, were at the self-proclaimed jesters of the barracks, always looking for their next prank. Their target today, a young woman they'd never seen before, sitting alone on a bench, engrossed in a book. She wore simple civilian clothes, a stark contrast to the sea of uniforms around her. To Jake, she looked completely out of place. "An easy mark. Watch this," Jake whispered to his buddies, a mischievous glint in his eye. He was holding a steaming cup of coffee. He pretended to trip, stumbling dramatically towards the bench. The hot liquid flew through the air, creating a perfect arc before landing squarely on the woman's pristine white blouse. A dark brown stain instantly bloomed across the fabric. The woman gasped, jumping to her feet as the hot coffee soaked through. Jake and his friends erupted in laughter. "Oh, my bad," Jake said, feigning innocence, but unable to hide his smirk. "You should really watch where you sit, miss. This is a military base, not a public park." Mark and Dave chimed in with snickers, high-fiving Jake for his brilliant performance. The woman just stared at them, her expression unreadable. She didn't shout or cry. She simply looked at the stain, then back at the trio of soldiers, a quiet intensity in her eyes that made Jake feel a flicker of unease. He quickly dismissed it. What could she possibly do? "Come on, guys! Let's go!" Jake said, nudging his friends. "Show's over." They swaggered away, leaving the woman standing there, a silent, solitary figure against the backdrop of the busy morning base. She calmly took a deep breath, dabbed at her blouse with a tissue, and then with a resolve that would have chilled Jake to the bone had he seen it, she walked purposefully towards the main administration building, the very heart of the base's command structure. Her day was just beginning, and it was going to be a memorable one for everyone involved. Later that morning, all soldiers were summoned to the main assembly hall for an unscheduled announcement. A buzz of curiosity filled the air. What could be so important? Jake and his friends were in the back, still chuckling about their morning prank. "Wonder what this is all about," Mark mumbled. "Probably some boring new protocol," Jake shrugged, scanning the crowd, his mind already drifting. Then, the base commander, General Thompson, stepped onto the stage. His face green, the room fell silent. "Soldiers," General Thompson began, his voice booming through the hall. "Today, we welcome a new leader to our command. She comes with a distinguished record, unparalleled strategic skills, and the full confidence of the top brass. It is my distinct honor to introduce you to our new Admiral, Admiral Hayes." He gestured to the side of the stage, and from the wings, a figure emerged. Jake's jaw dropped. The smug look on his face vanished, replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. Walking onto the stage was the very same woman from the bench. She was no longer in civilian clothes. Now, she wore a crisp, immaculate admiral's uniform, adorned with medals and ribbons that spoke of a long and decorated career. The white blouse was gone, replaced by a uniform that commanded respect and authority. She was Admiral Hayes. Their new boss. Admiral Hayes stepped up to the podium, her eyes scanning the sea of faces in front of her. Her gaze was calm, but held a steely edge. She didn't look angry. She looked powerful. Jake felt a cold sweat trickle down his back. He tried to shrink, to make himself invisible in the crowd, but he felt as though her eyes were locked directly on him. His heart hammered against his ribs. Mark and Dave were frozen beside him, their faces pale with shock. The weight of their stupidity crashed down on them like a ton of bricks. "Good morning, soldiers," Admiral Hayes said, her voice clear and steady. It carried to every corner of the hall, each word precise and deliberate. "It is an honor to be here. I believe in discipline, respect, and integrity. These are the pillars upon which our military stands." She paused, letting her words sink in. "And I have found that sometimes the best way to understand a new command is to see it from the ground up, to observe the de-duty conduct of its soldiers when they believe no one of importance is watching." Her eyes slowly moved across the room, and for a terrifying second, They seemed to linger on the back row where Jake and his friends stood petrified. A collective gasp rippled through the soldiers who had witnessed the incident earlier. The pieces of the puzzle were clicking into place for everyone. The new Admiral had been on the receiving end of the base's worst pranksters. Jake felt his knees go weak. This was a nightmare. He had not just spilled coffee on a civilian. He had assaulted a top-ranking officer. "I've already had a warm welcome this morning," she continued, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. It wasn't a smile of amusement. It was a smile of absolute control. It was ... illuminating. It showed me that while we have many fine soldiers on this base, there may be some who need a reminder of what respect truly means. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The entire base knew who she was talking about. The humiliation was public, and it was crushing. Jake, Mark, and Dave were immediately called into General Thompson's office after the assembly. The general, a man known for his stern but fair demeanor, looked at them with profound disappointment. Admiral Hayes was also there, standing by the window, her back to them. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the frantic beating of Jake's own heart. "Do you have any idea of the magnitude of your foolishness?" General Thompson boomed, his voice echoing in the confined space. Jake could only stammer, "Sir, we didn't know. It was just a joke, sir." Admiral Hayes turned around slowly. "A joke?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "You thought humiliating someone for your own amusement was a joke. You thought assaulting a person, regardless of their rank, was funny. That isn't a joke, soldier. That's a failure of character. A failure that has no place in my command." The consequences were swift and severe. Jake and his friends weren't discharged, which would have been the easy way out. Admiral Hayes had a different lesson in mind. They were assigned to the most grueling, menial tasks on the base for the next 6 months. Latrine duty scrubbing floors, peeling potatoes in the mess hall from dawn till dusk. They were stripped of all privileges, and their weekend leaves were revoked indefinitely. But the worst part was the public shame. They became a cautionary tale, a living example of what happens when arrogance and disrespect go unchecked. Every day, as they scrubbed and cleaned, they would see Admiral Hayes walking the base. She never spoke to them directly about the incident again. She didn't need to. Her presence was a constant reminder of their colossal mistake. She treated them with the same professional detachment she showed every other soldier. But her message was clear. She demanded excellence, and she had zero tolerance for bullying. The experience changed Jake profoundly. The smug prankster was gone, replaced by a humbled, quiet soldier who finally understood the true meaning of respect. He learned that a person's worth isn't determined by their uniform or appearance, but by their character. And he learned that some lessons, especially those taught by a new admiral with a stained blouse, are learned the hard way.